Once again, there are two SpaceX Dragons at the International Space Station. The one that the Crew 9 crew will be departing in a couple of hours from now is on the zenith or space-facing port of the Harmony module. The newly arrived Crew 10 crew docked early Sunday morning to the forward port of Harmony in their Dragon Endurance. And you see at the hatchway the four departing Crew 9 crew members posing for some final photos. Final handshakes and hugs between the departing Crew 9 crew members and the crew members who will remain on board the International Space Station, maintaining a continuous human presence on the orbital laboratory that began on November 2nd, 2000. Right. They will settle into their respective seats aboard Freedom as countdown clocks here in Mission Control are ticking backward toward the time of the command to initiate the opening of hooks holding Freedom to its docking port on the space-facing side of the Harmony module. That command to be issued about an hour and 55 minutes from now. The actual physical separation, what we peg as undocking for the history. On the far left of your screen, a good view of Dragon with its open nose cap. That nose cone will be closed following Tuesday's deorbit burn as part of the pre-entry procedures. Once again, moving into a quick handover here.
Be seated, working on Alex, and we'll be finishing up and ready for safety checks here shortly.
SpaceX copies all.
That communication between the spacecraft communicator at SpaceX Mission Control in Hawthorne, California, and Dragon's commander Nick Hague. The communications checks continuing Alexander Gorbanov yet to suit up. He will momentarily. As mentioned earlier, Williams and Wilmore not strangers to the Dragon Freedom. They National Space Station kicking off a handover period of just over a day between the two crews. An abbreviated handover compared to others that have preceded it. That designed to provide this opportunity for undocking, thus maximizing the best weather conditions that were forecast for this coming week over the next few days. This is our best shot with pristine weather off the coast of Florida to bring the Crew 9 crew home.
I was headed to see her, a bottle in hand, just me and my Chevy, a full tank and a plan. But wouldn't you know it, the damn truck broke down on a dirt road somewhere outside of town. Hitchhiked a ride from a drunk named Clyde. His white old hound just stared.
Station on 2 or ID egress.
Drunk the day Mama got free.
Go ahead on 2.
Had a fifth of Jack sitting next to me.
We are in step 5.2 and we found some pieces of dust around the hatch seal area, so we are going to clean them with cotton tape.
Copy and concur with the plan.
Japan Aerospace Exploration. Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Onishi newly arrived on the station as part of Crew 10, noticing a few flecks of dust along the hatch seals, so he will clean those off. We want to make sure that there's no foreign object debris at that hatch seal that could compromise the integrity of an airtight seal between pressurized mating adapter number 2 and the interface with the Dragon Freedom.
Go ahead.
Another view of the crew aboard Dragon Freedom looking...
There is one SpaceX bag. It's labeled as unarmed PFD. The bag number is 153, and its carabiner is attached to one of the bungees in PMS3. Can we just leave it as it is?
Checking.
I'll see Mama there one of these days.
Go ahead on 2.
We would like you to remove that bag from PMA3 temp stow in node 2, and we will find a permanent home for it after the undock.
Okay, we'll temp stow it in node 2.
SpaceX Crew on the big loop. Section 6 is complete.
April 11:26 p.m. Eastern, the station hatch also closed, and that sets the stage for the vestibule depressurization and final leak checks at the docking interface. Another perspective of Nick Hague and Alexander Gorbanov. Butch Wilmore is to Gorbanov's right. Essentially, you're looking over the shoulder of Sonny Williams, who's in the far left seat, if you will, in the seating configuration on the Dragon Freedom.
Freedom.
Later.
Umbilical demate reported to be complete as we stand by for the initiation of the opening of the hooks. 2 gangs of hooks, 12 hooks in all, holding Dragon to the docking port on the zenith side of Harmony. Again, Harmony was the port of call for Freedom initially when it arrived back in September. The forward port itself, it experienced a relocation maneuver with Hague, Gorbanov, Williams, and Wilmore on board back on November 3rd to move from the forward port to the zenith port, a short spin around the block to reposition that spacecraft where it has been mated and docked to the International Space Station since last November. 3.5 minutes away from physical separation.
Getting somewhere. Yeah, we all up in this shit. Yeah. I had to tap to settle down with a wife and kid. I live for the grind, and I grind to live. I wanna do the things that matter to me. Live like a good king, as life brings the good things. It's easy to get blinded by the stress and forget that every
Once
day is another
the
blessing.
physical separation occurs between Dragon and the docking port on Harmony, it will begin to move above the station at a very slow rate of about 1/10 of a meter per second. Then we'll move behind the station. A series of departure burns will then put it on a trajectory to carry it below the station and on its way to a safe distance away from the International Space Station for its deorbit burn that will occur at 4:11 p.m. Central Time, 5:11 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday afternoon to begin the final leg of the ride home for Williams, Wilmore, Hague, and Gorbanov. Physical separation, all systems reported to be in great shape.
Yeah, every day, we're just out here. We're just out here
All
doing
hooks
our
open.
thing, man.
All
We're
hooks
just
are
out here
open.
doing our thing.
And undocking confirmed. Freedom is free of its moorings.
Yeah, that's
Sonny
it,
Williams and Butch
Start
Wilmore
for
begin their
Nominal.
belated
Exit
trip
Dragon
home.
separation confirmed.
Time to get on with your life, get your vibes right. Man, fuck chasing women, they are wasting your time. They just thinking about themselves, playing games on your mind. It's time to
Undocking
figure shit
occurring
together.
right on time at
Focus on your
12:05
grind,
a.m.
yeah,
Central
it's now
Time,
or never, 'cause nothing
1:05
feels
a.m.
better
Eastern
than follow
Time.
your dreams, find your passion, 'cause without it your whole life gonna be lacking. We out to getting mad stacks every day. We don't got time for your pity games, 'cause we got purpose and nothing's gonna stand in the way. We
Good
gonna
motion,
do
good
what we
stability
can
on
do, so
Dragon
get
as
on
it
my
backs
face.
away.
So whatever you say,
Freedom, SpaceX on the big loop, depart burn 0 nominal.
medicine, this game is taking action. So get over yourself and wake the fuck up.
Good opening rate reported by the visiting vehicle officer.
On the big loop, on behalf of 39, I'd like to say it was a privilege to call station home, to live and work and be a part of a mission and a team that spans the globe working together in cooperation for the benefit of humanity. To our colleagues and dear friends who remain on the station, Alex and Dave Ripsat, Grill, we know the station's in great hands. We're excited to see what you guys are going to accomplish, and we'll be waiting for you. Crew 9's going home.
This is Zach. I wish we could spend more time with you guys, but many people who love you and whom you love are waiting for you. So safe travel, Godspeed.
And for crew arrival, we ring a bell in Navy tradition, and for Crew 9, I did a baritone salute as you undocked.
So an exchange of poignant words between the Dragon commander, Nick Hague, as well as the Crew 10 crew, the newly arrived Crew 10 crew members, Anne McLean, Takoya Onishi, and Don Pettit, offering their best wishes and Godspeed for a safe return to Earth on Tuesday afternoon for the quartet aboard the Dragon Freedom.
View of Dragon from the International Space Station, now quite a bit smaller than when we just saw a few minutes ago, undocking at 10:05 p.m. Pacific. Also in the line of sight there, we have a small view of the Canadarm, which is a robotic arm that helps do some maneuvering and is utilized a lot during spacewalks on board the International Space Station. So to recap, the hatches between the International Space Station and Dragon were closed earlier today at 8:05 p.m. Pacific, 11:05 p.m. Eastern. Since then, the crew has settled in and is working to take off their spacesuits for their 17-hour journey back to Earth. The joint NASA and SpaceX teams did, of course, pull go to proceed with undocking, and that undocking command was then sent at 10 p.m. Pacific, followed by umbilical retraction and hooks opening, with physical separation taking place at 10:05 p.m. Pacific, as the space station and Dragon were traveling 261 statute miles off the coast of Guam over the Pacific Ocean. Dragon then completed 2 of 4 departure burns and has exited the keep-out sphere, and we are now just minutes away from Dragon crossing the approach ellipsoid to set the spacecraft and Crew 9 up for their path back to Earth. Again, Dragon is targeting to splash down. It looks like we're starting to get maybe some views there of Dragon as well. These views are being controlled by one of the flight controllers in Mission Control Houston called Cronus, and they help to make sure that the cameras are in position to view not only visiting vehicles that are arriving and departing, but also help to ensure that cameras are in position to get great Earth views, ensure that perhaps if we're flying over a natural disaster like a hurricane or a wildfire, they are ensuring that those great cameras on board the International Space Station are being put to good use to capture all of the science and research that we can aboard the microgravity laboratory. And, you know, fun fact, actually, the International Space Station will be celebrating 25 years of continuous human presence this November. So if you are younger than 25 years old, you have never known a day in your life where there was not a human being living and working aboard the International Space Station.
That is so cool to me. It's just this amazing step forward for human exploration in space.
And with that, we're going to check back in with Rob Navius at the Johnson Space Center one more time. Go ahead, Rob. Space Station at 10:05 p.m. Pacific time. That sets us up for a splashdown tomorrow afternoon at 2:57 p.m. Pacific time off the coast of Florida. And so we did mention that the crew was busy with a lot of science and research investigations during their time on board the International Space Station.
The next day.
As I said before, we expect it to last about 7 minutes today, concluding at 5:51 p.m. Eastern Time or 2:51 p.m. Pacific Time. We right there have our first
trail as Dragon re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. All of that is expected. We are anticipating an acquisition of signal around 2:51 p.m. Pacific time, so just minutes from now, and you may hear the core begin to hail out or call Dragon for communications and see if we can potentially get communications with them a little bit earlier. Following this, we'll have two events in rapid succession. We'll have the drogue parachutes deploy at 2:53 p.m. Pacific, followed by the mains just 1 minute later at 2:54 p.m. Pacific time, ahead of a splashdown at 2:57 p.m. Pacific time off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida.
Pretty incredible views of the Dragon spacecraft making its way home back to planet Earth with the Crew 9 astronauts on board. Once again, this view is coming from the WB-57 plane. That heat shield we can see doing magnificent work as it works to
Freedom, SpaceX, contract.
Alright, we're going to start hearing the SpaceX Crew Operations Resource Engineer.
SpaceX Crew, this is with you. 4.16, enjoy the ride.
Copy that, Freedom.
Great news there from Commander Nick Hague reporting back.
We see a healthy flight computer. Expect automated chute deployment.
Like we said before, things moving very quickly as Dragon Freedom makes its way home. Next event coming up will be deployment of the drogue parachutes. This occurs around 18,000 feet.
GPS has converged. Expect nominal altitude for drogue chute deployment.
We're about 2 minutes away from deployment of those drogue parachutes. Now the heat shield is continuing to work to slow the vehicle down. That entry period, the Dragon spacecraft went from orbital velocity about 17,500 miles per hour down to about 350 miles per hour. So it really gives you a sense of why that plasma builds up on the exterior of the capsule, thanks to the heat shield and the work that it does. Those drogue parachutes will slow it down from 350 to about 119 miles per hour. We can see
15 kilometers. Brace for drogue window.
we can see seat rotation happening inside the capsule. Great to get those first views of our crew members. Once again, the capsule's going about 350 miles per hour when the drogues are deployed. Those drogue parachutes that we manufacture here in-house are going to slow the spacecraft down to 119 miles per hour. And that is when we'll see the main chute parachutes deploy, and that occurs about 6,000 feet above the ocean's surface.
And we are expecting drogue deployment at 2:53 p.m. Pacific, so we should see it any second now. And there you are getting a great view of Crew 9 inside Dragon Freedom as it returns back to Earth. We are awaiting the drogue deploys. This view coming from the WB-57 high altitude plane. And there you see it on your screen, drogue deployment.
We'll slow it down a little bit, and then the main chute will come.
As Dragon Freedom continues to make its way back to planet Earth.
Yep.
Next up, we'll stand by for the main deployment of the parachutes. The mains are quite a bit larger. You'll be able to notice the difference on your screen once they deploy, and they continue to ensure that the Dragon spacecraft slows down even further. As we mentioned, Freedom will be traveling 16 miles per hour when it splashes down off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. Here at 2:57 p.m. Pacific time this afternoon. And there we go.
We have visual for LD main.
And they're a lot bigger than the other one. So then they'll
Now awaiting visuals of splashdown. Start to hear Commander McKay.
no, they can't. Nope.
As you heard right there, Commander McKay calling out the altitude of the Dragon capsule from here on out. Making water is simpler and provides more margin against unlikely parachute issues. You can see those parachutes continuing to slow the Dragon capsule down.
And if you're just joining us, you're looking at
800 meters.
a live view of Crew 9, just minutes away from splashing down off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. Splashdown 2 minutes from now at 2:57 p.m. Pacific. We do have 4 healthy mains really doing the job there. Just breathtaking views of a calm, glass-like ocean off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. Crew 9 just minutes away from splashing down.
This is really such an incredible shot. That
Copy,
was
600.
That was a live view from our recovery vessel, Megan, which is stationed a couple miles away from the splashdown site. We can see the crew there using their restraints as resting places for their arms. They were just in space moments ago, so their arms were able to float freely.
400 meters.
This is a gorgeous bluebird day here that we have for the splashdown of Crew 9. It's incredible to think that the Dragon capsule just minutes ago was going over 17,000 miles per hour and now gently coasting to a soft splashdown.
200.
Copy, 200 meters. Brace for splashdown.
No, they still get blackout because that ship there isn't big enough. It's not like Starship. Starship can still broadcast through, which is never seen before.
And splashdown. Crew 9 back on Earth.
And now they'll have like colored. They'll have like a colored.
SpaceX Freedom, splashdown. Good main release.
Copy, splashdown. We see main chutes cut. Vic, Alex, Butch, Sunny, on behalf of SpaceX, welcome home.
Yep, so they'll all stay in there now.
It's an amazing, whatever I see a capsule full of friends ear to ear.
It's bobbing, but it's still sealed, so. Oh, there's the vessel
And
was.
as you can see on your screen, we have visual confirmation of splashdown. Dragon Freedom has returned home, and NASA astronauts.
System safety verifications are in progress. We'll report back when recovery personnel are en route.
I just we're expected to 4.800
Yeah,
landing response. And
see how burnt up the ship is. They clean all that up. Yep.
In the distance, we can see the recovery vessel making its way.
Copy, you're in section 2 for the environmental assessment in 4.800. That is not necessary today.
So the ship is.
understand.
We will continue to have communications between the Corps and Nick Hague, the commander of Crew Dragon Freedom, which just splashed down 2 minutes ago off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. Dragon Freedom has returned home with NASA astronauts Nick Hague, Sunny Williams, Butch Wilmore, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov. They're back on Earth after approximately 17 hours of a return journey from space.
The SpaceX recovery ship and team have been waiting for Dragon's splashdown, and they will now make their way to the splashdown splashdown location. The teams have been ready and waiting about 3 nautical miles away, so it's going to take them about 30 minutes or so to make their way to...
Oh, they stay kind of back,
Copy, Stable 1. We see the same.
so they don't land right on top of them.
It's going to take about 30 minutes for the recovery team to make their way over to Nick, Sunny, Butch, and Alexander, who are still seated and secured inside that Dragon spacecraft there on your screen. Incredible views there of that thermal protection system, or TPS. That Dragon capsule was pristine, white color before it departed the station. We can see how the re-entry phase, the thermal protection system did its job. Now, if you're wondering what that hole, that like bucket area is, that is underneath the side hatch. That is where the main parachutes were stored. So when we saw the Dragon capsule docked at station, it looked very different. The panel that protects and covers the main parachutes, that was still intact, as well as the panels that enclose where the drogue parachutes are located. We can see those fast
Freedom,
boats.
SpaceX is go for recovery personnel to approach. Expect personnel alongside in the next few minutes.
It's just the personnel, and then
We can see those fast boats. We weren't kidding when we said they were fast. While it does take about 30 minutes for the main recovery vessel to make its way over to the capsule, these fast boats will be doing a couple of things simultaneously. A couple of them are going to be working to retrieve the parachutes that you see in the background there of this drone shot. Those parachutes will be retrieved from the ocean surface. We want to make sure we are able to pull those out. The recovery vessel there closest to the spacecraft is going to be performing some safety checks. We can see there they're using an instrument that is basically working to detect if there are any hypergolic vapors or fumes that are still residing in and or around the Draco thruster nozzles or outlets. The hypergolic fuel, which is necessary for on-orbit burns to maneuver the spacecraft. Unfortunately, those hypergolics are unable to be breathed. They are toxic, and so this team here is doing those initial safety checks to make sure that it is safe for the rest of the recovery team to approach the spacecraft. They're also checking to make sure that any residuals from the pyros are safe and are not going to cause any issues. We can see the team working their way around the spacecraft to do these these sniff tests on all of those Draco thrusters.
so they check to make sure it's not
And as we continue to await the recovery of our Dragon spacecraft with NASA astronauts Nick Hague, Sunny Williams, Butch Wilmore, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov inside, Dragon has autonomously completed several steps to safe itself following splashdown. We are continuing to see Dragon in what is known as Stable 1 configuration. That's kind of the ideal configuration following splashdown. It's upright, and the Dragon capsule is in the right configuration for it to be hoisted into the recovery vessel Megan, which you do see a little ways off in your screen approaching. Dragon will continue to remain live on air with you through that recovery process, all the way through the point where the crew is extracted from the Dragon spacecraft. Now, if you are just joining us, the mission has gone smoothly so far. Dragon successfully splashed down off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida at 2:57 p.m. Pacific, 5:57 p.m. Eastern Time this afternoon.
Pick up the ship.
Approximately 17 hours prior to splashdown, Dragon autonomously undocked from the International Space Station, completed a series
that
of
ship
departure
that's
burns,
coming now.
jettisoned its trunk section, and performed its final burn, the deorbit burn. This placed the Dragon spacecraft on a trajectory toward Tallahassee, Florida. Dragon successfully re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, followed by deployment of its parachutes to slow the spacecraft down to a gentle splashdown. We're now going to follow the
Freedom, hyperball sweeps and unfired ordnance checks are nominal. Rigging is in progress. Approximately 25 minutes until capsule lift. stand by for PMC with SpaceX Flight Surgeon.
So what we did just hear there was communications that those hypergol checks were complete. They didn't find any of that upon those checks, so we'll continue to move through the timeline. Next up is a process called rigging, which you see happening right now on your screen. This is when a SpaceX recovery personnel actually works to climb aboard the capsule and work through procedures ahead of lifting onto the nest of the recovery vessel Megan. We heard it's going to be about 25 minutes or so until that lift actually takes place.
Okay, Freedom, the next call will be from the SpaceX Flight Surgeon on Dragon and Ground Private.
More Sunny Williams and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov. You're now working through procedures to hoist this spacecraft up onto the recovery vessel Megan.
We just saw that hydraulic arm get lowered into the lifting position. That arm will be the mechanism that is utilized to lift Dragon up and out of the water and into the nest located there at the aft end of the recovery vessel.
And the recovery vessel being used today is, as we mentioned multiple times, is named Megan, but that's actually after NASA astronaut Megan McArthur, who flew on Crew 2 a couple of years ago. We're getting some views now from actually inside the boat.
Yeah, you're exactly right. This view is straight down the recovery vessel.
Crew come out of the capsule and be placed on stretchers, just like with the Soyuz landing and with all of our Dragon splashdowns. That is the nominal procedure. We'll stand by to see Dragon Freedom translate or scooch up a little bit closer to the camera angle that we're seeing right here, and then teams will step through procedures to get that side hatch open. You see it right in the dead of center of your screen there. It's kind of that rectangular shape. It has not been opened since Crew 9, which include Nick Hagen, Alexander Gorbanov, launched back in September from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. So that will be the very first time that hatch is opened. Once docked to enter through the top hatch, which was where the nose cone is now closed. That's the hatch that they actually utilize to go ahead and get inside the International Space Station. As we get a little closer to that hatch opening procedure, you might start to see more individuals come into frame for some of that support. The ship has a maximum capacity of a little over 40 people on board, and it takes a variety of different roles, as we've discussed, to support. Also on board is the Chief of the Astronaut Office for NASA, that's Joe Acaba.
While we are standing by for translation of the Dragon spacecraft to the platform there, the recovery platform that we see in the foreground, it is important to note that Nick, Sunny, Butch, and Alexander will be getting assistance from the recovery teams while exiting the spacecraft. This is the same process for any returning long-duration crew members. As you could imagine, returning to a gravity environment can wreak havoc on our vestibular system, which is responsible for maintaining balance and motion. Of course, safety is our #1 priority with this operation, so we'll see the crew members helped out of the spacecraft one by one.
Thanks, Nick. It's been an honor.
This is a pretty exciting moment coming up. We are working to open the side hatch. One thing that may not be obvious from, just looking at the spacecraft here is that this side hatch that we're about to open, the last time it was open was when this spacecraft was at the launch pad. This side hatch is what is used for initial capsule ingress and final capsule egress, but all comings and goings from the spacecraft while it is on board the space station are from the forward hatch, which is located at the top of the spacecraft under that nose cone. So this is a pretty exciting moment because it will be the crew's first breath of fresh air since boarding their ships at the start of their journeys last year.
And the very first person that will have the opportunity to say hello to the crew once that hatch is open is a SpaceX medical recovery personnel representative. And we'll see procedures take place to remove the footrests of Dragon. That will just help the recovery personnel get a little bit more room to access the crew and help get them out of the spacecraft.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Safety is, once again, top priority here, and removing ththose footrests from all four seats will be helpful as a recovery, as a SpaceX recovery team member will actually go into the capsule, into Dragon Freedom to help the crew members unbuckle and stand up, and essentially we'll also see a fun little slide be put in place to help the crew members exit the spacecraft safely. So yeah, we're going to remove all four of those footrests to basically give a little bit more working room inside the spacecraft.
That's right, and we did hear the go for that hatch opening, so we're just a couple minutes away from being able to see that, and then we might be able to get the chance to see a couple of views inside of the Dragon and see the crew following their splashdown.
Now, opening that side hatch isn't quite like opening, the door to your car. We have to depress the seal around the side hatch, as well as, we'll now see that open that side hatch up.
So why does this chicken keep coming back for more without than laying that ass out on the floor? I don't know if you was looking these hands for me. Feels like find this hilarious, but I don't think it's funny. Try me again, you must not know how Peter always acts like a hoe.
And there you have it. The side hatch is open for the first time since September.
Like he hasn't given up. Catch me on a bridge, a train. I'm giving this chicken the face. Hopping from building to building, leaving him more pissed. I haven't took him out yet, and I will not.
You can see some of the protective equipment there that was brought into frame. That will help protect the edge of the side hatch. One from any potential damage. Oh, we can see the recovery crew member there taking photos of the side hatch seal. This is part of the standard operation for recovery. These photos will get saved into our procedure. We'll then install that protective frame around the side hatch. This helps to ensure that the side hatch itself, the edges of it incur no damage while crew members are coming out from the spacecraft. If you missed it, there was also a recovery team member that went inside. So there are now 5 people on board the Dragon spacecraft.
February made me shiver. My heating system would not deliver. Oil on my driveway, no power on the highway. I can't remember.
And if you are just joining us, it has not yet even been an hour since Crew 9 splashed down off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida at 2:57 p.m. Pacific time. The crew is now on board the recovery vessel Megan, and the hatch is open. Next major milestone that we'll see is when the crew will actually egress or exit the spacecraft, but before that they'll continue to, the recovery personnel rather, will continue to install that protective area around the hatch and then remove the footrests. So we're a couple minutes away from seeing the crew egress, but not too long away. See Crew 9, some happy waves, smiles all around, back on Earth.
The power's probably been turned off.
Generally speaking, we have the individuals in the two center seats of the were previously located on the upper leg of the crew members. We can see those being handed out to the recovery team. Those were taken off prior to the entry phase, to spacecraft re-entry. Those had to be stored and secured prior to dynamic operations.
It looks like we are starting to see the footrests also be removed. I just saw one there on the screen. There are 4, of course, one for each crew member.
Those footrests are made out of carbon fiber and are actually sized appropriately for each crew member, as everybody has different measurements and different leg lengths. Same goes for the armrests and the bucket length of each seat. We size those appropriately for the crew members and to ensure their comfort and safety. I believe we just saw the little ramp that is used to help slide.
Use of the microgravity lab of the International Space Station, which celebrates 25 years of continuous human presence this November.
Is it blonde or is it black or somewhere in between?
Looks like we're about to get our first crew member here upon egress of the Dragon spacecraft.
It's kind of a silly notion that
We are standing by for that egress. Outside of Dragon, you do see one of those stretchers. This is the expected procedure as the crew will be taken to medical facilities following their exit from Dragon.
They would all start whispering, I wonder if she has a fire crotch.
Does the carpet match the drapes?
I bet that's something you'd like to know.
Does the carpet match the drapes?
Why don't you come look down below? Is it blonde or is it black or somewhere in between?
We can see folks on board clapping as our first crew member.
And that is NASA astronaut Nick Hague, commander of Crew 9. Now out of Crew Dragon Freedom.
When will guys
smiles, thumbs up, and a wave. Can't get any better than that.
Yeah, that is one happy camper, that's for sure. As we said before, it is standard procedure for all of our long-duration crew members to receive assistance upon egressing from the spacecraft. We basically help them move off of the recovery deck and into the private medical quarters for their initial consultation with the SpaceX flight surgeon. So we'll see that take place for all 4 of our crew members today.
Capsule, we expect Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov, his first space flight. Spent 171 days in space alongside NASA astronaut Nick Hague.
Looks like we're getting some cheers and clapping on board as Alexander is slid down the little ramp and placed into the mobility aid. Again, big smile.
You melt the ice behind my stone cold eyes. I turn to ashes, but only just sometimes inhale your smoke, but you still act.
Now, the two crew members remaining in Dragon are NASA astronaut Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore. They completed 286 days in space.
One of the remaining footrests being the next crew member here. That is none other than Sunny Williams. Big smile, big waves. She, like her other crew members, now will be assisted onto mobility aid.
Keep the melters down again. Now it's pouring through my veins, but I said you're the spark to blame.
Harper on the walk. Back to your road. I think all of them.
There we have it. Some waves, some thumbs up, and some smiles.
Definitely seems to be a theme among all recovery operations.
Absolutely. And of course, that leaves NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore inside Dragon, seat 4. Her exits spacecraft.
Well, him and Sunny were in pretty long.
I'm reaching out for help. You got me in a riptide. You call me crazy now, but you don't understand. I'm calling
Elation and cheers there from Butch Wilmore, as we mentioned before, returning to Earth from coming from a microgravity environment can wreak havoc on the body. So it is customary, just standard procedure for all of our long-term space residents to get assistance once they are back on board a recovery vessel.
But I said you're the spark to blame, and it's fire burning holes inside my brain.
Well, now that Nick, Butch, Sunny, and Alexander are safely back home on Earth and getting checked out by the NASA medical team, we're going to wrap up our live coverage of their return. The Crew 9 mission began a little differently than usual.